Before you scroll away, you need to hear this, because what you thought were awkward mistakes on screen may actually be the most carefully hidden secret behind those unforgettable romantic scenes. And if you stay until the very end, you will see how one quiet revelation from Shen Yue has completely changed how fans are now watching every single moment between her and Dylan Wang. For years, viewers laughed softly at those slightly delayed lines, those unexpected pauses, those moments where Dylan Wang seemed to miss a cue just enough to make a scene feel more real, more intense, more unpredictable. It felt natural. It felt unscripted. And that is exactly why no one questioned it. Until now. The revelation did not come through an official interview or a press release. It surfaced quietly during what was supposed to be a casual behind-the-scenes conversation. Shen Yue was relaxed, almost playful at first, sharing memories about filming long nights, retakes, and the emotional pressure of romantic scenes. But then something shifted. Her tone changed just slightly. Not enough to alarm anyone immediately, but enough to make people listen more closely. And then she said it. He was not making mistakes. At first, people thought it was a joke, something lighthearted, something meant to entertain. But Shen Yue did not laugh it off. She did not correct herself. She simply continued speaking as if what she had said was already understood. He knew exactly what he was doing. That single line transformed everything. Because suddenly those small moments that fans had replayed countless times were no longer accidents, they became choices. Intentional, precise, and carefully placed within scenes that were supposed to follow strict direction. Behind the scenes, filming romantic sequences is controlled down to the smallest detail: camera angles, timing, dialogue, positioning. Everything is rehearsed and repeated until it fits perfectly within the director's vision. But according to Shen Yue, something else was happening beneath that structure. Dylan Wang would extend a pause just a second longer than planned, miss a line by just enough to require another take, shift timing in a way that forced the moment to linger. Not enough to disrupt the scene, but enough to change its rhythm, enough to stretch the intimacy. And what makes this even more powerful is that no one immediately stopped it, because it looked natural. It felt real. And in a world where authenticity is often difficult to capture, those moments were allowed to continue. Directors would call for another take, thinking it was a minor error. Crew members would reset positions without question, and the scene would play out again and again, each time carrying that same extended intensity, that same emotional closeness. Now imagine watching those scenes again, knowing this, knowing that what looked like hesitation may have been intention, knowing that what felt like imperfection may have been control. The entire experience changes. Fans began revisiting old clips almost immediately. Slow-motion breakdowns appeared everywhere. People counting seconds, comparing takes, analyzing expressions, looking for proof, looking for patterns, and they found them. Moments where eye contact lasted just a little too long. Moments where dialogue came just a fraction later than expected. Moments where the energy between them felt almost too real to be acting. And now those moments are being seen through a completely different lens. But the story does not end there. Because Shen Yue did not present this as accusation. She did not express anger or discomfort. Instead, her tone carried something more complicated. A mix of understanding, surprise, and something that remained unspoken, which only added to the mystery. Because if this was intentional, then why? Was it about creating better scenes? Was it about pushing emotional realism? Or was it something more personal, something that existed beyond the script? The question spread quickly, and so did the debate. Some fans admired the dedication to realism, calling it genius, a subtle way to elevate performance without disrupting the narrative. Others questioned the ethics, wondering whether such choices blurred professional boundaries in ways that should not be ignored. And a third group focused on the connection itself, asking whether these prolonged moments reflected something that could not be fully contained within scripted lines. Meanwhile, insiders from the production world began sharing their own perspectives. They described how easy it is for slight timing changes to go unnoticed during filming, especially when the emotional tone of a scene remains intact. They explained how directors often prioritize feeling over precision in romantic sequences, allowing actors space to explore connection, which made Dylan Wang's approach even more intriguing, because it operated within that space. Invisible but effective. Controlled but undetectable. As the conversation grew, one thing became clear. This revelation has not just changed how people view those scenes. It has changed how they view the people within them. Dylan Wang is no longer just seen as reacting to a script. He is now seen as shaping moments from within. Shen Yue is no longer just a co-actor. She is now part of a dynamic that feels far more layered than anyone initially believed. And the scenes themselves, they are no longer just scenes. They are moments filled with questions, hidden intention, and emotional depth that may never be fully explained. So now it comes down to you. Go back. Watch those scenes again. Look at the pauses. Feel the timing. Notice the silence between the words. And ask yourself, were those really mistakes, or were they something far more deliberate? Stay with the story, because the more people revisit those moments, the more details continue to surface, and what started as a simple behind-the-scenes comment may just be the beginning of a much larger revelation that no one saw coming. After Shen Yue words began circulating, everything changed. Not just the way fans viewed those scenes, but the way the entire industry started looking back at them. Because once a hidden intention is revealed, you cannot unsee it. Clips that once felt simple now carried weight. Moments that once felt natural now felt calculated. And the silence between lines suddenly became louder than the dialogue itself. But what happened next made the situation even more intense. Because people did not stop at rewatching scenes. They started comparing them. Different takes, different episodes, different emotional tones. Looking for patterns. And slowly, they began to find them. Moments where Dylan Wang's gaze lingered just a second too long. Moments where his timing shifted at the exact point where tension peaked. Moments where the scene seemed to stretch beyond what the script would normally allow. And once those patterns became visible, the conversation exploded again. Because this was no longer about one or two moments. It was about consistency, intent, and control. Meanwhile, Shen Yue did not expand on her statement. She did not clarify further. She did not deny anything. She simply moved forward as if the truth had already been said and did not need to be repeated. And that silence only added another layer. Because when someone reveals something and then refuses to revisit it, it leaves everything suspended, open, unresolved. At the same time, insiders began quietly sharing their perspectives. Not publicly, not officially, but enough to add fuel to what was already spreading. They described how Dylan Wang was known for being highly aware during filming, not just focused on his own performance, but on the emotional pacing of the entire scene. They mentioned how he would sometimes request subtle adjustments, timing, positioning, even camera angles, but always within limits that did not raise concern, which now raises a bigger question. If he had that level of awareness, then how much of those moments were truly accidental? And how much were carefully designed? Back on screen, the impact was undeniable. Fans were no longer watching for story alone. They were watching for intention, for micro-expressions, for timing, for pauses, trying to decode something that may never be fully explained. And that shift is powerful, because once audiences begin searching for hidden meaning, the narrative changes permanently. But the most surprising moment came from an unexpected place. A resurfaced behind-the-scenes clip. Short, almost overlooked at first. In it, Dylan Wang was seen laughing lightly after a retake. The director was giving feedback, and he responded with a simple line. Sometimes it feels better this way. At the time, it meant nothing. Now, it means everything. Because that single sentence now fits into the larger picture. A picture where emotion was not just acted, but shaped, extended, controlled, and perhaps even protected. As the discussion reached its peak, one thing became clear. This was never just about acting. It was about connection, about presence, about the thin line between performance and reality, and where that line may have blurred without anyone fully realizing it. So now the story reaches its most important point. Not a conclusion, but a realization. Because the truth here is not something that can be confirmed with one statement. It is something that exists in moments, in choices, in silence, in what was done, and what was left unsaid. Dylan Wang has not addressed the claim. Shen Yue has not expanded on it. And the scenes remain exactly as they were. Unchanged, but completely different now that the perspective has shifted. So the final question is not whether those moments were intentional. The real question is why. Why extend those scenes? Why stretch those seconds? Why create something that feels more real than the script itself? Because whatever the answer is, it goes beyond acting and into something much deeper. Now it is your turn. Go back and watch those scenes again. Pay attention to the pauses, the timing, the silence, and decide for yourself. Were they mistakes? Or were they moments that were never meant to end when the script said they should? Stay tuned, because if more details emerge, the story may take an even more unexpected turn, and what feels like a simple reveal today could become something much bigger tomorrow.